Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Traversing Entrepreneurship Podcast, a show for business owners who set out to do something different and did not stop there. This is Derek DeLomo coming to you from Traverse City, Michigan, the city that inspired the name of this show. With over 18 years of experience in the finance industry, I've heard my fair share of success as well as horror stories in business. On this podcast, I enjoy sitting down with a variety of entrepreneurs to talk about what it takes to build a successful business and all the ups and downs that come along with doing something different and paving your own way in life. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing Sarah Noel Block, the founder of Tiny Marketing and the creator of the Tiny Marketing Club. She is passionate about revolutionizing marketing for founder-led business service companies. Join us today as we discuss the art of efficient, high-impact marketing that drives growth without draining resources and her mission to empower businesses. Welcome to the show, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So, it is good. Like I always say when I'm asked, hey, how are you doing? I always say it's good to be seen and not viewed, right? So we're upright, we're vertical. Every day is a good day.
Yeah, I am alive.
Yes. So, Sarah, can you give our listeners a little bit of, your background, maybe what life was like before, you started Tiny Marketing and the Tiny Marketing Club?
Yeah. So pre-Tiny Marketing, I was corporate marketing for 15 years. And I worked a lot in the construction industry, actually, and like building materials. So I was almost always the first marketing hire because they were like, we've got it until they didn't have it anymore. And that also put a lot of constraints on me because I was the only marketing hire. So I had to figure out how to do it really efficiently. Now I'm working with mostly indie consultants who are trying to figure out how to do it themselves too, when they're also doing all of the client delivery.
Sounds like a lot of fun and a lot of work and a lot of hats.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of hats. I love it though. You have to get scrappy and creative, and that always keeps things interesting.
What preempted you to try to get out of corporate marketing and do your own thing?
That was probably like a series of triggers that happened. We'll start with the first one. Yeah. Back in 2008, 2009 era, the recession, every junior level person got laid off, and that was me. So after that, I was like, I'm never, ever again having just one stream of income. I'm not going to rely on one company to rely on for my own safety and comfort. So I started freelancing then, but stayed in corporate marketing for years after that. I just always had some project I was working on with independent clients. And then 2020, COVID, my kids went into virtual school for a year and a half. And I already had enough clients to make up my salary at that point while I was working full time. So I was like, I might as well, if there's a time to leap, it's now. So
Absolutely.
That's when I did it full time.
Especially when everything was I'm sure you and I both we're not young, but we're on the younger end of the spectrum. When it comes to corporate and other jobs, we used Zoom and all these other video conferencing platforms well before they became mainstream. But then once kind of COVID said, hey, you've got to do everything via Zoom, must have made that transition a lot easier.
It made it so easy. And the fact that I, at the time, tended to work with a lot of boring, quote unquote, businesses that didn't know how to market. They relied strictly on relationships, which, it's awesome, but it works so much better when it's hand in hand with marketing. So the fact that they couldn't go out and do that relationship building stuff that they used to, go to those events, and they had to quickly transition, made it insanely easy to launch my business and build a portfolio of clients because everyone needed to do it immediately.
So here's the chicken and the egg question for you. Which came first, the Tiny Marketing Club or Tiny Marketing?
Tiny Marketing came first. It was an agency for a long time until about a year ago. I transitioned over to Tiny Marketing Club. I'm still working with a few select clients on the agency side, but Tiny Marketing Club is where my heart is. That's where I'm working
Okay.
with indie consultants and guiding them through this process.
So my stupid little husband brain says, okay, you're working with indie consultants. So those are other marketing consultants? Or
Some are marketing consultants, but I have like fractional COOs, fractional CFOs, people that are consulting on nonprofits and ESG. So anybody who comes into another business and helps them solve a problem, that's who I'm working with.
gotcha. Okay. And then I guess let's just start with this. What does the Tiny Marketing Club do? What is, you said your heart's behind it. So why is your heart behind the Tiny Marketing Club?
Because I am helping them build lifestyles that they want. And that seems just a lot more magical to me than padding a corporation's books. So it's just more special to me. That's why I care. We start off by building a one-to-one, like custom strategy that works for them. And it leans into one, what's already working, but make it scalable, and two, what do they actually enjoy doing so it doesn't feel like extra work. And you know no one wants to do something that they hate doing on top of all of the client delivery that they have to do also.
Sure. And how have you been? I assume with, both Tiny Marketing on the agency side and Tiny Marketing Club, you're still having to wear a lot of
Yeah, I
hats to
am.
kind of, help them, do what's good for, their lifestyle, but also bring some value to the corporation that they're implementing. Well, I guess let me put it this way. Are you only working with those indie consultants on their lives, or are you working with them on both their lives and kind of the corporate marketing strategy?
I'm working with them on their lifestyle business. So we're just
Okay.
reverse engineering. Like, what's your revenue goal? What offers would make sense for that? What do we have to price them at? And then working backwards, what marketing would attract people to that? And what biz dev and sales techniques do we need to use in order to make it all work together? On the corporate side, they only need me as their fractional CMO. They're like, just tell us how to market. They don't care about any of
Tell
the
me
other.
what to do. Where,
Yeah.
what buckets do I need to fill, and where, what vertical is this going out in, and how is it going to drive sales, right?
Exactly. Exactly. They just want my marketing brain. They don't need the whole business side of it.
Sure. So, what have you, I guess, seen over the last? So, Tiny Marketing Club only started a year or so ago.
Hmm.
Okay. And you have, from the sounds of it, you're only working with a few select clients on the agency side. So, you've basically transitioned the business once again, to a completely different business model.
Yeah, that wasn't easy. That was a slow transition.
Slow, it seems quite fast in all honesty, if you're saying it only started a year ago, but that's your primary now.
Yes. But what you're not seeing is the planning of it, the beta
Sure.
testing of it. The official launch was a year ago, but there was a lot of brain power that went into it before that.
Yeah, I hear that because I'm the opposite. Like when I started, so I had a finance firm for what? Still have the finance firm, but probably 14 years. And then because I was working with primarily business owners and the questions that I was getting was related to taxation, I'd started a tax firm. And I just was like, we'll figure this out as we go. So,
Yeah. I I appreciate people who are like that, but that isn't me. I can't. I'm always like, I'm a chronic beta tester. I always have to validate every little thing before I take it to the next level. I don't know. I'm like fear adverse, I guess.
it's, from my standpoint, I was like, I was already answering the questions. I might as well make it official. And
Yeah.
it's been, I can't say it's been the cleanest, for the last 4 or 5 years, but it's worked and it's there. It's fine. I went and did all of my, testing and whatever else was necessary after I actually launched the firm.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? It like building the thing takes a lot less time than figuring out how to market something completely different. So,
Correct.
like for me, I am a marketer. This is what I do. But marketing, you have to run through experimentation when you're completely like when you're selling at scale versus selling one-on-one. It's a totally different process. So I think that is like the offer itself came to me really quickly, but learning how to position it and sell it and market it in a different way took extra time.
And, let's say how many times, so I mean, you went through all the beta testing of Tiny Marketing Club for likely years before you launched it.
Different versions of it. No, not years, but
Okay.
probably a year, different variations of it.
How many different variations did it come to before you got to the
This
current Tiny
version,
Marketing Club?
mm, three, three different versions of it. The first one was more of a course and it sold, but I was like, people aren't going to get as much impact as I want them to from an on-demand course. And then it moved to an accelerator version and in a cohort. And then I was like, that's not really scalable. I can't, that's not going to scale as fast as I need it to. So
You can't manage, 8 cohorts in different areas at the
no,
same
it
time.
was not what I expected. So that's when I tested out the version that it is now. And I'm like, oh, okay, here's the sweet spot. I found it.
Yeah. I feel like I've followed that path just with different, like I did years ago, I did the courses, the DIY, here's a bunch of resources. Then I joined a cohort, kind of small
The
group thing,
exact same
the
transition.
exact same transition. And
That was funny.
but for me, it's been, let's see, probably 5 years of doing that.
Yeah. Well, the course I guess was 2 years ago. And then I was like, nope, hated that. I'm not actually going to do that at all. And then I just took a pause and just did my thing. Then I tried the others, to be fair.
Yeah. So what have you seen over the last, year or two as you've transitioned these business models? What have you seen as like your biggest successes as you've been able to, start it, scrap it, start it, scrap it? What can you put your finger on? It's like, this is what I am most happy about.
Yeah. I have been collecting data the entire time. My
Okay.
goal is to get these business owners to booked out, their version of booked out within 60 days. And I didn't have that specific goal. I just wanted them to get to booked out until I started collecting the data. And I was like, okay, when I run Tiny Marketing Club in this particular way, my clients are getting booked out within 60 days. So then that became my new goal. I want all of the people that go through this to get booked out in 60 days. So I just replicate what worked for those clients with the others. And I'm like, oh, there it is.
It's easy, right? Just
Yeah.
rinse, repeat.
after after a couple of years of fumbling and figuring it out, yeah, now it's easy.
Well, they always say we learn from our mistakes, not from our successes.
Ain't that the truth?
So I mean, as a transition there, kind of what's been hardest or most discouraging parts about, these various transitions you've had over the course of your careers?
The hardest is cash flow when I'm trying to make that transition because I can't take on as many done for you clients, which, was always my bread and butter. And so I had to pause to build out the thing and start selling the thing. And while they've all sold, it was all a lot of like clunky learning lessons to figure out what would work. So cash flow has been the hardest part as I'm making changes.
And how did you manage those cash flow, I'll call them not insecurities, but cash flow inconsistencies?
Well, actually, I did something that I ended up pulling into the Tiny Marketing Club because it worked so well. So I just suffered the first time it happened, just suffered through it. Luckily, it's not a single income house, but I was like, well, I can't let that keep happening. So the next time that happened, and it was actually right around when I was building out this iteration of Tiny Marketing Club, and I had a lot of people joining. So, but it was also like their payments were split each month. So it wasn't like a huge chunk of money up front. It would be nice over the long term, but I was onboarding all of those people with just like a deposit in my accounts. So what I learned was what I called the Biz Dev Blitz. And now it's inside of the club because I'm like, oh, that worked like magic. So I used niche communities where like all of my ideal clients were hanging out anyway, asking questions. And I had built an entire system around it. I would answer questions. I would DM them to see if they wanted to brainstorm on the answer that I gave them. And then that conversation would naturally turn into a sales call. So I did like 3 different strategies for this Biz Dev Blitz, and I did it over 30 days. It resulted in 6 months of like booked out for 6 months plus a wait list. And I was like, oh, dang, that works. So now anytime I'm like, oh, I'm coming up on
Pipeline's drying up.
pipeline's drying up. I do a Biz Dev Blitz and whoop, fills right back up.
And then you're then able to replicate that with the people that you're bringing on.
Yes. Yes. It makes everything so much easier. It was honestly just like a 30-day testing period where I was like, I'm screwed if I don't make this work. I'm going to try out these tactics. I put it in an Airtable. I put down like all of the data. Like if I had a connection call, where did that person come from? Did they turn into a sales call, a referral, a gateway offer, or an upsell into a full client? And I just tracked all of that data for 30 days. I created a dashboard so I could see where the majority of my income was coming from. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing that thing. And it works so easily.
And so when you look back on it, like what do those metrics look like for you? Like of the, let's say you made, I don't know, 100 calls during this 30-day blitz.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for you of, okay, how many turned into each of those sections and how much time spent per se?
Yeah. So the connection calls were 15 minutes each. And if I remember correctly, 48% turned into money, whether it was a referral or a client.
Impressive.
Yeah. And the majority came from 2 sources, which I actually linked. It was probably 2-step strategy. And it was niche communities and then connecting with them over to on LinkedIn. And that became my nurturing spot. So discovery was a niche community, nurture was LinkedIn, and that converted to a client.
That's amazing. And were you writing all the content yourself? Did you have, I mean, was it
Yeah,
kind
it
of, you
was
see
all
there,
me.
there's
I'm
a
the
big,
content girl.
okay. But there's all this push now that, I get inundated every day with, hey, this is an AI program that does X, Y, Z. And I'm like, that's impersonal and stupid. But
Yeah, no. I write my own content. But I love AI. It makes everything work faster and easier, but I use core content or anchor content, you might have heard it called, and I break it up into teaching moments, and that feeds everything. So I have a podcast, Tiny Marketing Show, and whatever that topic is, I'll break it up into 3 learning moments, and that becomes like 6 different types of content. It just makes it easy when you have a core to work from.
sure. Yeah, it's like those learning moments, said in another way, it's telling people they don't know what they're doing without hurting their feelings.
Yeah, I suppose. I I'm always like, what is something someone can learn from this episode? Just something tiny, because I want it really biteable. Like, could
Sure.
you implement this in 5 minutes? That's the thing I want to talk about.
All right. So can you give me an example of how the heck can you give me an example, like your most recent podcast, let's say, or one of your recent podcasts? You broke it up into 3 learning moments. What was one of those moments and what can I implement in 5 minutes?
Yeah, actually, give me 1 second. I literally just wrote a 5-minute tip in my email. I'm going to pull it up
All right.
because
Got to learn something new every day. So I'm taking that opportunity right now.
yeah, it, I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. My brain's already in 7 different places. Here's the email. Let's see.
Didn't know this was going to be a pop quiz today, did you?
Here we are, though, pop quizzing.
Here we are.
Okay, so here's the 5-minute tip that I had from this one. If you're thinking about switching niches, run a mini offer for 3 to 5 businesses within that niche to validate your offer. So something that would take less than an hour to do.
That's perfect. It's like, okay, you want to switch. All you have to do is spend an hour to basically put together what do we want to call it? Almost a bland testimonial.
Yeah. Are you talking about with the mini offer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one way you could do it is, let's say, a consulting call, and they're coming for a specific problem that would lead into your signature offer. So, okay, I built out a strategy for a client recently, and I think I called it like dream mapping. It's a dream mapping call. And she works in finance, actually. So what she does is she takes your like life goals and she reverses it. So how do we figure out what you need financially to make that life
Yep.
goal happen? So that's what she would do in that 1 hour call, which would lead into her main offer. But you could spend 5 minutes to write a little pitch and send it to some warm prospects. That's 5 minutes. It allows you to validate that offer. And, an even easier way, instead of getting a bland testimonial, is like take that consulting call and what they said and throw that into ChatGPT, the transcript. And
Absolutely.
yeah, have it spit out what they would write as a testimonial and send it to that client for approval.
You could probably also use that to write Google reviews too.
Absolutely.
It's like, hey, does this sound good? Can you post that for me?
Yeah, I mean, you're using their words because you're taking it from the
Yeah.
transcript. You're just
Yep.
putting it in a way that would lead people to actually want the offer instead of, I love her, that kind of thing.
Yeah. He's the greatest. He's the greatest. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Everything's
that's
unicorns and
nice,
rainbows.
but it doesn't get people to buy.
So how often are you going through like these biz dev blitzes, you know, in the course of your year per se for Tiny Marketing Club?
Um, well, for the club members, we're doing it once a month.
Okay.
But for myself, like I have co-working hours, so we just have standard times that we're doing it. For myself, probably twice a year fills up my
Okay.
pipeline.
I've said it a couple of times today. That's impressive. A couple of times a year so 2 months a year, you're doing a biz dev blitz that's filling your pipeline for the entire year.
Yeah, if you think about just the funnel that you're working, you just math it. How many calls do you actually have to schedule? Pay attention. How many convert? It's once you do it a couple times, you're like, oh, okay, this is just math. This amount of people will probably convert because that's what they have in the past.
It's funny. It's like I deal with that in finance and tax all the time. It's like the internet's a wonderful spot, but it's also inundated with a bunch of useless information that is just
Yeah.
noise, right? So like, oh, I got to do all these things. And you're like, no, you have to do two. And,
Yeah.
put your time and effort there at this point for this long. Chances are, probability says you are going to be good if you do that. And it's like, it makes it so simple once you can filter out all the noise and just say, here's your sandbox, play in there for these periods of time. Here's a shovel and a dump truck and a pail.
You are
It,
spot on with that. I even overcomplicated things as the tiny marketing person. I'm already streamlined it as much as I thought was humanly possible, but I scale it back even more and more the more I learn. Like, you just need one, the Biz Dev Blitz that works like a charm. You need to make it scalable. So you need
yep,
some marketing scalability, like visibility mechanism. So when people are Googling you, they see what you can do. Or if they're looking you up because you requested to have a connection call with them, they need to see you're valuable and trustworthy. And then the right offers. And like making sure that you have a system that pulls them through those offers. That's all you need.
yep. And I will tell you that's at least from personal experience, that's where most people fail is the right offer side. I mean, I still don't have, at least to my knowledge, a repeatable, definable right offer, if you will.
You know what? Most people don't, but there's like, I like to think of offers as a staircase. You
Yes.
want an offer that will bring people in when with like that first milestone that they would need to get over that initial hump and be ready to work with you on your signature offer. So, I'll start with like a simple, I'll just give you an example of a simple one. Like a consulting call, like the dream mapping call, 60 minutes. Let's say it's $700. That's that. And then the next one would be a gateway offer. And a gateway offer is what would set the foundation for your signature offer. So that's where you're bringing all of the stakeholders who would need to make that decision together, build out the blueprint for what it would look like to move forward with you, where they could take that blueprint and do it themselves, or they could, better yet, have you do it. And then you have that review session where you upsell them to the signature offer where you're actually doing the execution. And that's your top of that staircase. But that allows you to just get micro yeses every step of the way and earn their trust into that signature offer. So you're not, asking someone to marry you before they even know you.
Right. And I mean, you're playing right into the, kind of the emotional way that people make decisions. We always do business with people we know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
So, that first part of it gets them to know you and starts, hopefully they will like you and begin to trust you, you know, get a small, call it flat fee for doing that. You know,
Hmm.
the next thing I would assume is probably either a little bit larger retainer or possibly like an hourly consulting agreement, getting those people involved. And
Yeah.
then now you've got more people starting to know you, like you, and begin to trust you more before you bring in the, you know, call it full on retainer or full on, flat fee version.
Yeah. I would.
However, I don't know about pricing, but, you know, I would assume that, those little, like you said, the micro yeses just build into that. Okay, I now know this person. I've had multiple contacts with them.
Mhm.
I'm still talking to them, which means I at least somewhat like them. And I'm still talking to them, so I at least somewhat trust what they're having to say. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here anymore. So
Yes,
you're kind of
exactly.
checking off all those boxes.
You need to think of it really strategically. So, that first one, I think of it like paid lead gen. So, you're charging for it and you are getting them past that friction point that they're going to have at the beginning
Yep.
because, well, one, most of the time clients come to you thinking they understand their problem, but they're really just feeling their pain. They don't know the whole, like, why they're experiencing that pain. So you need to help them solve that and change their mindset so they understand why they need to solve that problem.
Yep.
And the gateway offer, you want to charge somewhere between 10 and 25% of the cost of your signature offer. So it's low enough that it's like, why not? But it's high enough that they can't, that you're kind of validating the pricing, that they can afford
Absolutely.
that. And that is setting the foundation for that main package. And it's also getting you in front of the decision makers that all have to say yes. And then that next step is what you would typically be doing on an offer. But it's set up way easier because you already have that foundation. So your onboarding is done already. The discovery work is done already because you did those other steps with them.
Yeah, you've made the entire, call it, sales process a heck of a lot easier and less daunting by breaking it up into, hey, weird, tiny pieces.
Yes, that is true. You're getting micro yeses and you're getting paid along the sales process.
Yeah, as opposed to, let's say that takes 3 months per se to do that, right? It's
Mhm.
not 0, 0, 0 yes. It
Yeah,
is micro yes, larger yes, actual yes, but you're not zero cash flow for the entire time. Brilliant,
exactly.
actually. Brilliant.
Exactly. It's so much easier that way.
Yeah. So when you look at it now, how comfortable, let's say, you're putting me through your funnel per se.
Mhm.
How often now that you've kind of broken these out into little micro yeses versus, let's say, the first iteration was just a bona fide offer, what are those, getting to
The
yes
conversion,
percentages look like, conversion rates look like versus the original iteration or a different iteration?
I would say when I was just doing sales calls to proposal to main offer, I'd probably get about 40% that converted.
Okay.
And now I'm getting about 80% that convert.
So double.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It like I'm it works well on both ends because if at any point they're like, actually don't like working with Sarah at all, they can opt out too. And the
yeah,
same for me. So it's easier to sell in that way. And you're just happier working with those clients that end up in that final phase because you've already gone through the trenches with them and you understand how they work and you have more of a relationship with them instead of jumping in the deep end.
yeah, that I would say that used to work when marketing wasn't so, I'll call it, niched. It's like, hey, you have no idea how to do anything online from a presence or a branding standpoint and putting an offer together. And now it's like, yeah, a lot of people at least know their way around the internet and know how to put things together. I still don't know how to present it, but that's kind of, it seems to me like that's where this comes through. I've already have an idea.
Hmm.
Now, how do I get people to understand, you know, engage with the idea and say yes to the idea?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really about looking at that problem that you solve ultimately and going back 2 steps and back 2 steps. So each of those levels, you're solving the problem, that hump that they need to get over in order to work with you anyway and solve that problem. So they need to solve these issues no matter what.
Sure. And it seems like you're almost solving the issues before the
Yeah.
prospective client is even bringing it to you as an issue.
Yes, they're not aware fully of what is causing their problem yet. That's why you have that initial, that paid lead gen consulting
Hmm.
call
Yep.
where you're helping them discover the true problem behind what's going on and then moving them onto, and then this is how we fix it. This is like the roadmap to fix that issue. And then this is how I fix it for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like, me talking to you today is like, okay, I should be involved in your next Biz Dev Blitz.
Yeah.
Like you reaching out to me type of thing because you know, you're hitting on all of my pain points without it really ever having talking to me before, besides a 15 or 20-minute intro call that we had months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
So it's,
funny. I
you
mean,
know,
not that funny though, because I know exactly what problems someone like you would be going through because that's who
oh
I'm
yeah,
working with.
yeah. No, it's just like, okay, all the stuff that you're saying is ringing insanely true, and which is why I'm pretty darn engaged in this podcast, because you're like, okay, let's see what I can learn in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm the same way with my guests too. I'm like, tell me more.
Absolutely. Because I mean, knowledge is power, right? And, once you have the knowledge, you get to decide what you want to do with it. You're
Yeah.
helping, you're helping somebody like me take that knowledge and actually focus that power to be like, okay, here is where it needs to be directed, as
Mhm.
opposed to just saying, hey, I'm going golfing with two guys to talk about, you know, taxation and whatever else. Because that's just, I mean, that's fun, but what's the conversion rate on that? Maybe 10%?
Yeah, you're right. And this does like really personalize the experience for someone and gives them little wins along the way. That's a huge part of what converts so highly is that you are getting them a win with each one of those steps.
Absolutely. And, and it's on both sides, for like me as the seller and you as the, prospect or vice versa, you know, you're getting a little win by getting some cash flow along the way.
Yeah.
I'm getting a win by micro by saying micro yeses to problems that I know I have but don't know how to address, and now I have a blueprint for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the like sales always felt so icky to me until I
Always, I
started.
hate sales.
Yeah, it's like, ugh, it feels like manipulation. But the way that I have learned to sell because I didn't like it
Mhm.
is this way. And it feels mutually beneficial
You're
process.
providing value as opposed to providing a concept. It's it's
Yeah.
it's bona fide. Like I always said, I don't sell. I don't have anything to sell, right? Well, I do. It's myself and what's in between my ears. You know, as soon as I realized that literally everybody is selling something, literally, whether you are physician, lawyer, marketer, financial advisor, accountant, flower shop, everybody has something to sell. Okay, you've got a broken bone. I'm going to be the person that fixes it.
Mhm.
You're sick. You need you have a legal issue. I'm going to help you get out of it. I still have to sell that to you, right?
Right.
So it's like my first hurdle was like realizing that sales is inert in every business. And it's like, okay, even though you might not have a quote unquote product or widget to sell, you're still selling something. Like, I mean, here's something from the Museum of Illusions in Chicago. They have a widget. I don't have a widget, but I do have services and knowledge to sell and strategies to sell. So that's fine. The next step for me is like, okay, how do I take that bona fide knowledge, get you to trust what I have to say?
Hmm.
My sales process is much like yours, where it's like I'm actually providing value free of charge to be like, hey, here's all the things you potentially can do that should take, 5 to 10 minutes of work a quarter each.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, boom, 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 boom. Or, usually I limit it to, two every time because anything more than three, nobody's going to do any of it. Anything less, anything one or less, that's not enough, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm paying X for one thing. It's like, okay, two, if they're two small ones, I can add in a third, but I will not go more than three because otherwise nothing's getting done.
That's a really good point. I was just on a strategy call last week where she was telling me that her strategies that she's sending are 50 pages. And I was like, and yeah, it was the wrong audience to be able to accept that because that was just causing overwhelm. She's like, I don't get it because they're not converting. I was like, they're overwhelmed. The
Yes.
strategies that I'm sending are 10 pages. And trust me, I have been there where I was like, this is just too freaking good. I'm going to add on a little bit more. I'm going to give them a little bonus. And they didn't convert.
Yep.
And it wasn't 50 pages either. It was like 18, but it was just too much. You need to provide the blueprint of what they need to do instead of, and this is how you do it, because that just becomes too much.
It's I mean, it's entirely true. I mean, I remember when I first got into the financial planning industry in 2006, financial plan deliverables were 280 pages long, right? I'm like, this needs to be 1 to 3
Yeah.
because I mean, all the information's in there. They don't need all the supporting documents. It's just here's what needs to be done and here's why. So that's, I mean, I break it up now into like quarterly pieces, you know, 3 topics a quarter. Maybe you'll have something to do for 2 of them each quarter, maybe, you know. And if everything's hunky dory, we don't even have to meet that quarter. You don't get billed for it, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, as long as you follow through with your steps that I've given you and that you continue to do, boom, you're good. It takes 30 to 45 minutes a quarter as opposed to 3 hours a year or more, you know, one time. Everything gets done. Everybody's happy. Everybody's been compensated. Everybody understands value. Boom, here we are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you are, I mean, and most of us are, working with someone who isn't in the same field as us, it's not their
Uh-huh.
expertise. That's the reason they hired you. Um, Too much information is going to drown them and make them
Absolutely.
feel like it's impossible to understand, to wrap their minds around what you've created. So the simpler, the better.
Like everything that I do now is in a 1 page follow-up email. So like if you have to scroll more than once
Yeah, it's a
to,
bad one.
yep, like even on a mobile device, right? So if I've got what 5 inches of screen, that big maybe, I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
that's your limit.
It's like if I have to scroll once to basically get down to the next steps and signature, that's fine. If I have to scroll twice, that's too much. So it's like, okay, you really have to take everything that you've said, have to be confident enough in what you've done to be able to simplify it down to one scroll on a mobile device or a computer screen to make sure that what you want to come through is going to, I mean, it makes you be very to the point and
Yeah.
direct, but also from what I've seen, that's what people want. Is not, hey, here's all the why, how, everything behind it. It's what do I need to do? Give me one sentence of why. We're good.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. If I wanted the why behind it, I would have learned about it. I just want to know what I
Correct.
have to do.
Yeah. All right. You're not, I'm not in your world. And it's like, if you were to send me 18 pages, I'd be like, no. I was
I
like,
and that's what happened. I didn't land that
yeah,
client.
yeah. Like, give me one page with 2 or 3 sections with bullet points of, okay, take an hour and do this. Take an hour, take 15 minutes and do this. Take 5 minutes, put this into Chat GPT and do this. It's like, but I can do that.
Yeah.
If you give me this and I have to now go through like follow a checklist, not happening at all.
Yeah, I am constantly having to tell a client, like, so part of the club, people can send me their work, I'll review it, and I'll send a loom back or comments back. And almost every single time, I'm like, take the page numbers out, like, and you'll receive a 30-page strat. Nope, no, 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 no. Even just seeing that would overwhelm me. I wouldn't want that. Take that out. And
Yeah.
it also ties you to a certain number where different people are going to need different things.
It's like if I'm hired on as a fractional CFO of a company, my offer page is 1 page long,
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
and it's just, okay, here are the, primary objectives, secondary objectives, tertiary objectives, like in order of importance to them, inputted with a few from me, knowing that I know, hey, you've got to deal with this first. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, we've got 2 primary objectives, boom and boom. Let's spend the next 2 months dealing with that.
Yeah.
And then you can move on to the next ones, review, make sure that these ones are still going good so that you're not dropping the ball anywhere. But I mean, it becomes a very repeatable process. And that's what you want from all of these people because, if they are on with you and they are on board with what you're doing, they're a client for life.
Yeah. Yeah. And Similar when I'm like presenting a final offer for someone. I put it at the end of the strategy, like on a separate page, and it's less than a page. It's probably a half page of the
Yeah.
bullets, and it's just connecting the dots. Like, these are the challenges that you talked about in our call. This is what I would do to resolve that challenge for you. And that's it. Just like connecting the dots using their own words makes it a lot easier to sell, because you're like, this is exactly what you said.
Here's what you said. Exactly. It's really easy. So, kind of transitioning towards, the exit here, when you look at when people are starting their own businesses or even transitioning from, corporate to their own or maybe buying internally, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs or aspiring business owners that is like, here is things you need to know and focus on as you enter this world versus, your salaried world, let's say?
One thing that they would need to learn, I would say start with test offers. Pick a
Okay.
niche and start with test offers. And that would be like that first stage paid lead gen kind of offer. And that gives you a lot to work with because it also gives you market research. You find out what their challenges are, what their goals are, what triggered them to reach out to you or say yes to this offer in the first place. So you get that market research. You will learn also, like, did this solve their problem? What journey am I taking them on? Where are they starting and where do they want to end up? And that will allow you to build out an offer that is validated already by starting there.
Yeah, you're using bona fide data from a prospect that you are interested in
Mm-hmm.
or prospects that you are interested in. So now you have usable data that you can go back and refine to make into a bona fide offer because it's actually based on them or someone like them. It's
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going after the same type of person, they're likely going through the same challenges. They likely have the same goals. So it's easy to replicate them and clone your dream clients.
absolutely, oh, you want to replicate a bunch of the same people? Weird. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
So, we usually end every episode by giving guests, a few minutes to have the floor, leave a message to our listeners, whether it's, promoting tiny marketing or tiny marketing club, just not discussing something that you're passionate about. Really, it's your time to have the floor and give our listeners a little bit extra of what Sarah and Tiny Marketing and Tiny Marketing Club have to offer.
Okay. Um, well, I would say let's just talk a little bit about what it looks like inside of that container, what people can expect. So we start off with a strategic spark, which is my gateway offer, where I
Okay.
interview you and anyone on your team, and we build out the strategy that will take you from that challenge that you're dealing with at the moment. For most of my clients, it's lead gen or a dry sales pipeline, and they need to figure out, how do I make consistent money? So that's usually where we're starting. I build out that strategy for you, and I build you a roadmap. So we know exactly what we're doing over the next set period of time, in a hybrid fashion. So I'm working with you side by side the entire time and going through each of those milestones with you to make sure you're getting to the other side. And then on average, we're seeing about 60 days to booked out.
It's just what I mean. So so 60 days from the start of your,
Yeah, the
I'll
start of
call
the
it discover
container.
your gateway call. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Geez, oh Pete. And booked out for most of these people is how many months booked out?
Yeah, so for myself that was a year, but for a lot of my clients it's they have retainers. So
Okay.
it's a year.
Okay. Impressive. So how can our listeners find out more about Tiny Marketing and Tiny Marketing Club?
They can go to my website. It's sarahnoelblock.com, my name. And I also talk about it all the time on my show. So if they want to listen to Tiny Marketing, that is the name of my show.
Perfect. Love it. All right. Well, as you know, my name is Derek DeLomo. I'm the owner of both Tremonti Financial Consultants and Tremonti Tax Solutions, together referred to as Tremonti. Tremonti bridges the gap between financial advisors and accountants by serving as CFO to our clients. We specifically love to work with business owners to develop a proactive tax strategy that maximizes after-tax profits. It's our job to help you earn more, be more efficient, grow faster, and pay as little in taxes as legally possible. This idea piques your interest, please go to TremontiTax.com and click on the Schedule Now button to book a 15-minute chat with me. Whether we end up working together or not, I'd love to hear from you. With all that said, Sarah, it was really good talking to you today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
For those listening, if you enjoyed today's episode and had a few helpful takeaways, we'd love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and share this episode with other business-minded friends. This has been another episode of the Traversing Entrepreneurship podcast. We had fun today and hope you did too. Thanks again, Sarah, for being here, and thank you for tuning in and listening. Peace out.
This podcast is presented by Tremonti Financial Consultants, LLC. The firm is registered as an investment advisor and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Content should not be viewed as an offer to buy or sell any of the securities mentioned or as legal or tax advice. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment or strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. There are no assurances that a portfolio will match or exceed any particular benchmark. All investment strategies can result in profit or loss.